What's going on, guys? So I got an interesting question on Instagram, and the question reads: realistically, at a minimum, how often or how long per stretch per week to gain flexibility for BJJ? So, thank you for the question. Let's get into it. There's a lot of different ideas, theories, um, kind of concepts on stretching. Should you stretch beforehand? Should you not stretch? Um, what are the benefits of stretching? Does stretching decrease injuries? There's a lot of things to think about, and kind of the research says certain things about stretching. But I want to kind of focus specifically on improving flexibility or how long minimally you should stretch. Now, there's articles out there, research out there that may be beneficial and helpful, but there's one article that I kind of just, I was trying to basically find the minimal, the dosage that's minimal to get some results, right? So, minimally effective dose, I guess, is the way we can think about it. There's all kinds of different types of stretching. There's more of a dynamic stretching where you kind of move in and out of a stretch, not holding it for a very long time. There's more static stretching where you're just holding the stretch, the position for a prolonged period of time. And then you have kind of more muscle energy or kind of contract, relax type stretching called PNF stretching. And that's a way you kind of contract the muscles and then relax the muscles to get some stretching in. Now, there's different strategies, different effectiveness of some of these. However, let's just talk about the basics of how long would you need to stretch to get some benefit, some improvement in flexibility. Now, so purely stretching is not complete. So what I mean by that is just increasing flexibility or range of motion in a joint doesn't really benefit you unless you have good control of that range of motion. So that's kind of something to think about. If you've got a ton of flexibility, it's not always going to be maybe the thing that you need. But again, if you feel like your hamstrings are tight, for example, and that's something you want to improve upon, here's some ideas to think about. So here's one interesting article that I kind of found that I think could be helpful to think about. So the article is titled Acute and Long-Term Effects of Two Different Static Stretching Training Protocols on Range of Motion. It also talks about how those stretching affect vertical jump. I'm not really worried about that. We're just kind of trying to figure out what is the minimally effective dose to get more flexibility in a muscle, right? So basically, the two different types of stretching was they did 3 for 30 seconds or 1 round of 90 seconds. And the stretches were performed 3 times a week. So this specific study was working on quad stretching, right? And so they did basically laying on your belly, stretching the quad muscles out to see if that impacted the range of motion of the hip joint. And so total of 27 sessions. So they did some type of dynamic warm up. So that could be simply thinking about they did like 10 minutes of like some kind of movement based warm up. They weren't really specific into. So it could be like if we're talking about Jiu-Jitsu, it could be just like doing some flow rolling. It could be doing some just dynamic movement. It could be some drills, something to get your body warmed up. So they did that for about 10 minutes, followed by either 3 rounds of 30-second stretching or 1 round of 90 seconds. And so that was performed 3 times per week. So this is kind of like talking about the minimum. So then kind of they measured the hip range of motion at week 0, so before they started, at week 3, week 6, and week 9. And what they found was that the groups that did the one round of 90 seconds and 3 rounds for 30 seconds both started to show improvements in their hip range of motion. So they had better flexibility at week 6. So starting at week 6, they were having better flexibility already. They still got a little bit more at 9 as well. And then there was a control group of athletes that didn't do any stretching at all. Obviously, their flexibility didn't change, but you got to have a control group in these studies. So as you can see, the results, both stretching protocols increased range of motion on 6 weeks. And then also at 9 weeks, you can see they're, I think, measuring the angle of the hip, the range of the degree of the hip extension. So the way to think about it is if you're looking at minimum effective dose, what's the minimum amount of stretching that I could do to a specific muscle? Probably be about 3 times for 30 seconds or 90 seconds, 3 times a week. And you should see some improvement at 6 weeks of consistent stretching. Now, this does include a warm up. Now, here's the other thing to think about. Um, Having a muscle or a joint issue, that's also something to think about. You may not get more range of motion in a joint if something's wrong with the joint itself. So kind of take that with a grain of salt. Stretching can be helpful, can be useful for recovery and also improving range of motion, flexibility, but it's not complete. Like I said, there's other things you need to work on. Obviously, joint mobility is very important. Adequate warm up, adequate cool down. Making sure you're hydrated. Those are things to think about. And if you're got some tightness and you feel some restrictions in some muscles, stretching can be good. So I guess the whole point of this thing, like the result just from this study, if we're looking at minimally effective dose, what's the minimum amount of time that I can stretch? It would be 90 seconds per muscle, 3 times a week. And you should start to see some improvements at about 6 weeks. So hopefully that helps answer the question. Now, again, there may be differences in different types of stretching, utilizing different techniques, but this is just basically the most simplest way to put it. If you're trying to figure out what will give me some improvement in flexibility, it would be that 90 seconds 3 times a week. So hopefully that answers your question. Again, if you have any other questions for me, shoot me a message or a comment down below. And hopefully this helps you guys get a little bit more information on how to improve your flexibility. Specifically, if you want to learn a little bit more about mobility work, I've got some more resources on the YouTube channel and then also at jujitsutherapist.com. So hopefully this helps, guys. Talk to you next time.